What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. In today's episode, we're gonna go back in time. We're gonna get into a time machine and go back to baby Luke before MIgardener, and we're gonna be showing you what I was doing before I did MIgardener at a commercial greenhouse. Let's go. So a lot of you know that I have a pretty extensive background working at a commercial greenhouse, and a lot of you also kind of want to know what it was like, kind of a day in the life of Luke as a 15, 16-year-old working at a commercial greenhouse. And so I thought it was kind of a fun opportunity because today we actually have to take some cuttings from our rosemary plants here to propagate them for next year. We're going to throw them into our little retail greenhouse that we have here at the shop. And if you're local, by the way, stop by in the spring. We have plants for sale. It's a ton of fun, loved having it. But this is like 1/200th of what I would do on a daily basis. So what I'm gonna do here, even though it's gonna seem like crazy and extreme, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what I would do at the commercial greenhouse. So back at the commercial greenhouse, I had two tasks. In the early season, I was the head of the propagation department. And so we would essentially take tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of cuttings and basically root them out, propagate them. So working as head of propagation, basically our objective was to select healthy cuttings, root those cuttings, and get them ready for retail. And so what we would do is we would actually have what's considered a mother plant. This is a mother plant. These are all mother plants. And mother plants are essentially a large, fully mature, grown version of whatever you're gonna be taking cuttings for. And we're gonna be taking exact clones. Now, we've done lots of videos on this, but basically what we would do is we would select a cutting that was about 2.5 inches tall. We'd remove those lower leaves. We'd come through here. And you always want to you can root cuttings that are not top growth, but this is what we do. We would take top growth. We'd go into a greenhouse that had exclusively mother plants. Maybe rosemary, maybe succulents, maybe some sage, geraniums. Rosemary, we did, per week, we would do about 5,000 to 7,000 rosemary cuttings. The big thing that we always stressed was quality. Quality was super important. And so what we would do, after one mother plant, we'd take a container of isopropyl alcohol. We always have this in our back pocket. We'd take our pruning shears and essentially give them a good dunk. We were never to cut from multiple mother plants without first sanitizing our pruning shears. Also, which you probably don't see here, is you don't see a hairnet, you don't see booties on the feet, and you don't see surgical gloves. It was incredibly sterile, the environment we were in, because this environment housed potentially anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 worth of mother plants. And if in the event something were to happen if we were to bring something on your hands, a fungus, whatever, on your hands or on your shoes, dirt, things like that, any type of foreign material, it could potentially contaminate and start to breed out of control in a very sterile environment. And so it was very climate controlled. Everything was incredibly sterile. Now, the one reason why you do wanna sterilize your pruners with isopropyl alcohol is because anytime you're gonna be moving from plant to plant, you're actually cutting into live tissue. And when you cut into that live tissue, if there's any bacteria or disease or fungus or anything like that that's on one mother plant, you don't wanna risk spreading that to another mother plant. Those cuttings are being cut open and exposed to air as well as bacteria and other contamination. And this was only 1/2 of our job. Well, actually it was only 1/3 of our job. The first step was to take all of our cuttings from the mother plants. Then we'd have these big bins of essentially cuttings, just like this. We would then have to prep those cuttings to get them ready to root. Then we'd have to root those cuttings and get them ready for transplanting into trays. So one of my most favorite was actually rosemary. That's why I love doing rosemary even right now, and why it doesn't bother me too much, because rosemary was just such a satisfying crop to propagate. When it was done correctly, it was very successful, almost 90–95% success rate, just super fun to do. And it always looked so pretty in the trays because they were all just so uniform, and I don't know, yes, it looked mass produced and like kind of took away the heart and soul of gardening a little bit, but in a way it also looked just fascinating to have 5,000 rosemary cuttings all lined up, and then the next day do another 5,000. It was just incredible to have that many rosemary cuttings all lined up rooting at the same time. Super fascinating. my least favorite, hands down, would never do it again, even if someone paid me $1 million, would be stevia. Stevia was absolutely horrible. Stevia was one of the worst, simply because stevia rooted very poorly. It was a very soft plant. It just, survival rate was very low. Even in a perfect setting, when you knew what you were doing, stevia just, you looked at it wrong and it died. It was just so frustrating. And it just, yeah, one of my least favorite. All right, so you've seen this propagation station before. This is just our, in our lunchroom here. But we would take these at the greenhouse, we would take these holeless seed trays. These are known as flats. They are about 10 inches roughly by 22 inches long. And we'd basically just fill them up with a propagation medium. Now what we would use is this vermiculite here. Now vermiculite, or a combination of vermiculite and sand. Vermiculite works very, very well, and because we're doing this on a smaller scale, vermiculite's gonna be fine. A lot of you are probably gonna be wondering, well, Luke, why didn't you use potting mix? I have a lot of success with potting mix. You can take cuttings and put them in potting mix, but your chance of failure is very high. Prime example, here's one. This one here failed. And how you know it failed is you start to see the brown tips on the leaves. That's caused from dehydration. And what you'll notice is that even though we kept the soil damp, no roots, didn't take. And I really was hoping this one would take. This also we have here, this is rock wool. Now rock wool is awesome. I absolutely love rock wool, and it's great for taking cuttings. It's very effective because it holds on to moisture very well and it's very sterile. But the downside is when the roots form, it can be a little bit challenging on a large scale to come in here and fish these roots out. So this was the cutting from rock wool, and what you'll notice is these leaf nodes here are where the roots come out. It's a very, very finite window when you can actually separate it from the rock wool and have success. But compare that to this rosemary here in vermiculite. You'll notice absolutely no algae growth. Leaves are nice and green, and watch what happens when we pull this out. Look at this. We're just gonna lift it out carefully. Look at this. Nothing that we have to actually kind of rip and tear out. The rock wool is a lot more challenging to separate the roots out. It is possible, but it takes a lot longer. Whereas with these, you can imagine a nice big tray of these. When they start to root successfully, you just lift them out and then throw them into some soil and you're good to go. So that is why, that's why vermiculite is a little bit better when doing a large scale rooting session than like rock wool is. Now you're probably wondering about sand. What about sand? Well, we did use sand sometimes. Sand was in the case of very finicky, like really long term. If they were in that medium for a super long period of time, we'd put them in sand as well. We do a combination 50-50 blend of vermiculite and sand. But for stuff like rosemary, basil, most of your, like 90% of your plants, just straight vermiculite is fine. All right, so first stage here is just fill our tray up with our vermiculite. All right, so now we got our vermiculite in here. What we're looking for is about 1.5 inches to 2 inches at most of vermiculite. These trays here are about 2.5 inches tall. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill them up about halfway or so with vermiculite, these holeless seed trays. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna pre-moisten. Really important we pre-moisten our mix because we want our cuttings to stand up straight and nice and tall and not be flopping all over the place. So we're gonna pre-moisten this mix. Now it's also very important we don't oversaturate this mix because if we do, what's gonna happen is they're gonna be sitting in water and you don't want that. So it's always a very delicate balance of how much. But what I would do is I would tip it up and I see just a little bit of water there. I'll tip it the other way, get it to soak in. I can hear it, I can hear all the bubbles. The bubbles are the air gaps in the vermiculite getting absorbed, but you'll notice now there's almost no water left. It's almost completely absorbed. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna prep our cuttings. So let's get prepping. All right, so here's our cutting, and all we're gonna do is we're gonna remove some leaves, cut it to size, and what we want is we want at least one leaf node. That's where the roots are gonna form, right? We're gonna take the blade of our pruners and just kind of shave off that outer skin, expose that nice green cambium layer. That's what we're looking for. Again, I would not do all 5,000 of these. We had a whole team, so I was part of that team. Dip it in our rooting hormone here, like that. and then stick it into the vermiculite. Now this, you'll notice, is a little bit tall here. So ideally, we're gonna want for our tray here, a little bit rusty. For our cutting here, we want the cutting to basically just be like that. There we go. That's perfect. Now notice we're also going to crowd these in here. Once these are in here, we're going to have maybe no more than a ½ inch apart between plants. All right, so there you guys go. There is what it's like to propagate rosemary cuttings on a commercial scale. I still got a fair amount to go, but it's lunchtime. So I'm gonna let you guys go so you all can hopefully propagate some rosemary cuttings. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you guys so much for coming along with me on this little flashback journey to what it was like to work at a commercial greenhouse. And I'll be honest, kind of forgot how long it took to do this. And imagine I sat and did this all day. Maybe explains why I have some back problems. So anyways, take care guys. Love you as always. Grow bigger. Take care. Bye.